Hi folks, this is International Master Kostya Kavutskiy, and today I'll be doing a video on back rank combinations. Now, if you're watching this video, you're probably at a level where you've seen a number of different back rank combinations already in your studies. So we'll try not to focus on super simple ones, but rather a little bit more complicated ones or positions where the right move involves a back rank as a theme, a common motive, but with other tactics going on as well. And that's because I think most players, up to even 1200 can understand the fundamental back rank trick. They're really not hard to surmise. But what does make them tricky is when it's either an unusual situation or back rank motifs are combined with other motifs in the position and are thus harder to calculate. So there will be a couple exercises in this video. I would encourage you guys to try your hand at solving them by pausing the video before I give the solution and trying to work out all the variations for yourself. In this problem, this is white to play and win. And this actually comes from a game of Capablanca versus Russolimo back in 1938. Please pause the video and try it for yourself. Well, here white wins with the move bishop to d3. I think this move is not too hard to find once you know the theme of the puzzle, which is, of course, the back rank. White opens up an attack against black's rook on a8, and white also attacks the knight on e5. If in the original position we just took on e5, black would just take the bishop on a6 and be more or less okay. But this bishop d3 move opens up this powerful double attack and hits the escape square h7, which makes the whole back rank idea even possible. So rook takes a1 leads to mate immediately, and black has no defense. I would say the best move is probably rook to e8. And here you needed to see that white has the move rook takes e5 winning. Otherwise, black keeps all of his material and is totally fine. So you needed to see rook takes e5 in advance with the idea of that rook a8 check is coming and black is getting mated. So this puzzle is easy if you know that the theme is back rank. But if you didn't know, if you had just had this position in a game, I imagine a lot of players might miss the tactic even though they're at a level where they should be able to find it. So why is that? Well, in my opinion, I think the reason that players miss tactics that are below their level is because they weren't in this actively looking for tactics like you are when you're solving a puzzle. In a game, there's a lot to think about. There's not always a hint or a guide to tell you that you have a tactic available in the position. Here, if you are kind of noticing certain things, you might be able to find the tactic. Number one, there are several pieces hanging in the position. Rook on a8 is unprotected, knight on e5 is undefended, and this might give you a hint that you should look for some kind of tactical combination. Once you are slightly aware that there might be something going on, then you look for forcing moves, and eventually, if you're in tune with the back rank theme, bishop d3 should come to mind, although without all this thinking, it's not an easy move to see right away. With that, let's move on to our next example. Here we have a white to play and win, and I'd encourage you guys to pause the video and try to find the strongest continuation for white. And with that, we'll look at the solution. So white wins with a really strong move, knight f6 check. And black is forced to take this knight, and white's idea is to simply recapture. Now the queen on e4 is taboo because of rook to d8, followed by mate on the back rank. Black has a number of different choices here. He can play rook f8 or bishop e6, but white is developing a decisive attack in all of these cases. For example, bishop e6. White has a number of ways to win here. Queen f4 is strong, but even stronger is queen g4 check, threatening queen g7 next move, and if black plays bishop takes g4, we have rook takes e8 with another back rank mate. So if rook f8, then I believe white's strongest is to play queen to f4, threatening queen g5 check followed by mate, king h8, queen g5, rook g8, and very standard deflection tactic, rook to e8, again using the back rank and forcing white to play queen to g7 mate. So this is kind of one of the examples I was discussing earlier where It's not exactly a back rank tactic, but the back rank ends up being a very important aspect of this whole combination. A lot of players might miss knight f6 because after gf6, they kind of assume subconsciously that they can't play e takes f6, of course, because the queen is hanging. But if you're calculating with accuracy, you see that the pawn comes to f6, hits g7, puts black's king in a very uncomfortable position, and opens up all of these back rank resources. So let's move on to the next puzzle. This next one is quite tricky and does require some precise calculation, so I'd encourage you guys to pause the video and spend 5-10 minutes here trying to find white's winning continuation. Well, at first glance, it looks like black's position is nearly perfect. He has this amazing blockading rook on d5. His queen is more active. The only problem is, of course, the back rank. I think if black had already had his pawn on h6 here, he would have a nearly strategically winning position, but that's not how chess works. Sometimes the devil is in the details. Here white wins, starting with rook to c2, hitting black's queen and x-raying the back rank. Now black has only one reasonable defense here, and that is queen takes d4. And if white plays rook c8 check, well, rook d8, and white has no win here. For example, we'll move like queen to e4, black can play queen d2 check, and then secure the back rank, and is going to be totally fine. Of course, not queen takes e4, as this would allow rook takes d8 mate. So white's next move, rook c4, very important, challenging black's queen. And this is one of those problems where if you haven't seen the full solution from the start, you really haven't solved the problem in complete, because every move here is very precise and necessary. Okay, so after rook c4, black's queen has to move and has to stay in contact with d8 in order to block the back rank check. So queen d3 here would be insufficient because white can trade queens and give mate. And the only reasonable defense here is queen to b6, keeping in contact with d8. Now white plays rook c8 check, rook d8, and you really needed to find the last move here, otherwise black is totally okay. And that is queen to b5. Very, very nice resource for white, and black's queen basically runs out of squares. If we take the queen, of course white wins immediately. If black takes the rook, we will just take the queen. And if queen to d4, white can go queen to e8 check and force the back rank mate. So very nice finish, this queen b5 move. I believe queen e3 here is also winning, as black's queen runs out of ways to keep in contact with the rook. So if you found either of these moves from the start, you can consider yourself successful in solving this problem. A really nice problem, and another one that I think is probably not too hard to find if you know there's a tactic in this situation. But during a game, if you didn't know there was a solution, a winning idea, it'd be very easy to overlook some of these moves because you're not expecting to win. I think the only fix for that is, number one, if you're aware of your opponent's the weakness of their back rank, then you should be looking very carefully for these kinds of tactics in every position, especially once you see that you have rook c2, which looks very, very promising. After you see that it seems like a promising continuation, then you really need to focus and try to calculate and find the resources from here. With that, we'll be finishing this lesson here. Check out the exercises for more puzzles related to back rank, or where back rank is a significant theme. And until next time, this was International Master Kostya Kavutskiy. Take care.